Welcome back to Honey Toast Podcast. Today we are joined by Devin Hall. She is a clinical Ayurvedic specialist and the founder of Ease Ayurveda. She helps women move from a state of survival into full embodiment and ease so that hormones, digestion, and vitality can all thrive. Her work blends Ayurveda, nervous system repair, and somatic therapy, but at its core, it really is just about tuning in and listening back to the body rather than just jumping into fixing it. So if you are somebody who's ever questioned, what is my gut saying? Or what does intuition have to do with digestion? Then this episode is for you.
I know it's wrong, but I don't care.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Devin. We're so grateful and honored to have your voice on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I am just, so excited to be here.
Yay.
We're so glad to have you. So obviously, Ayurveda is something that's really, I feel, worldwide now. I think that a lot of different people are starting to incorporate it into their everyday life. But for someone that has zero knowledge on Ayurveda practices or what the components are to an Ayurvedic lifestyle, how would you explain that to them, or how would you introduce them to it so that we can kind of lay a foundation for some of our listeners that might just be curious?
Yeah, totally. So Ayurveda, without getting too heady, Ayurveda is really the holistic medical system from India. It's the most ancient medical practice that we know of that's written. It dates back 5,000 years, maybe even 9,000 years.
Wow.
And it's really this time-tested, holistic way of treating the body through diet, through lifestyle, and through herbs. And similar to other traditional medical systems out there, like traditional Chinese medicine, it's really rooted in element theory. So we have the elements ether, air, fire, water, and earth. And from these elements are really like the building blocks of nature. And they describe everything that has ever been manifest, everything that exists. So from these elements, we have qualities that describe these elements, and these 20 qualities, they're 10 pairs of opposites. This is kind of like how Ayurveda describes everything that's happening in the body, in the world, in the mind, everything. And so these 10 pairs of opposite qualities are things like hot and cold, or dry and moist, or light and heavy. And so each element is a specific combination of these qualities. So when we're describing something like water, we describe it as moist because it is literally moist, but it also represents like cohesion and smoothness. And something like air is motion. It's the opposite of stability, but it also represents let's say, it also represents things like variability. And so even though these elements are something that's like real, like fire and water and air, they're real things, they also represent ideas or emotions. And so really anything that's happening in the body can be described by these elements and their qualities. So then above that, and this is where we get into the doshas. So above elements, we have our qualities, we have our elements, we have the doshas. And so if you have ever heard of Ayurveda, you've probably heard of the doshas. And this is how we describe our own bodies. And the doshas are these energies that really govern every function in the body. So they are vata, there's pitta, and there's kapha. And each one of these doshas contains two elements. So vata is air and ether. Pitta is fire and water. And this water is almost a little bit oily in nature. And then we have kapha, that is water and earth. And so every body has all three of them. We all are made of all five elements, but we all have varying degrees of each. So when someone said, like if you've heard of Ayurveda, maybe you know that you're a vata person. That doesn't mean that you are all vata. It just means that you have extra vata in you. You have extra air and ether elements in you. And so you have tendencies that are different from someone that maybe is, say, kapha, that has more earth and water elements in them. And so this is kind of how we talk about you hear the doshas, we're just talking about what you consist of and what your tendencies kind of are.
This actually spiked a question in me because you were saying not everyone is one element. Everyone is like a little bit of everything, which is interesting because I mean, we want labels sometimes to just like understand and define. So each dosha, from what I understand, has its strengths and weaknesses. So how might somebody recognize these strengths within themselves, or like what are qualities within like a personality? Because we're saying like air is a bit more motion and fluid. Like what qualities would you look at someone, or let's say somebody doesn't know anything about it without having to have a background in Ayurveda, how can they recognize those qualities in themselves? That's my question. That's what I'm gonna say.
So I think it's easy to honestly like get too in the weeds with just thinking about what your dosha is. And let me back up really fast. So like every person has a constitution. And so your prakriti in Vedic or in Sanskrit, your prakriti is what you were given at conception. So this is like your very specific ratio of vata to pitta to kapha that you're given at conception. And this is you at your most balanced state. When I see a client, I'm looking at what is called their vikriti, which is their imbalance, or all the ways in which their doshas are currently out of balance or maybe like heightened.
Right.
And so it's, as a practitioner, it's easy for me to kind of stay within the dosha realm. As someone that is new to Ayurveda, I would say kind of ignore the doshas for a second. Just look at the qualities of your symptoms. Like, if you are experiencing anxiety, for example, you are feeling ungrounded, you're feeling light and mobile, like there's a lot of like ungroundedness and a lot of speed happening in your mind, and just like a lot of variability happening. There's a lack of stability and a lack of stillness. And so those are the ones that we want to bring in, right? That the rule in Ayurveda is like increases like, and opposites bring balance. So if you're experiencing mobility and if you're experiencing like variability, then you want to bring in stability and you want to bring in stillness. So that's how we start to really think about it.
So
and
it's
like
kind of all about balancing the scales and like finding balance within the body, within the mind. Okay, so I have to ask because I went on your website and did my quiz, did your quiz.
Oh, nice.
And I got kapha.
Yeah.
So what, if you can, how would you like describe that? And I don't know if, you know, based off of obviously just a quiz, it's not going to give you maybe a full spectrum of information
doesn't know
that
very
you
much
need.
about you,
Yeah. But just like, can you give me a rundown of like what that
like
means?
stereotypical kapha things? Okay.
Yeah. Like why would I have gotten that as the results?
Yeah. So this is and this is for your gut type. You did the gut type quiz? Yeah. So if you have a vata gut type, so you have more water and earth in you.
Oh no.
And those
Kapha.
Was it kapha? Oh, did I say vata?
Yeah.
I meant kapha. So if you have a kapha gut type, you have more water and earth elements within you. And so those come up in your digestion. They also come up in your mind. They come up everywhere. And when you are in balance, this shows up as really steady. Like kapha energy is like when you have a lot of water and earth in you, you're very stable and things just move at ease. Like one of the ways that is a really easy way to think about the doshas is thinking of them as different types of boats. And so if you have a vata boat, this is your like air and ether boat. They are a little sailboat. Like they are sailing and the wind just takes them like literally wherever.
Right.
And it's a lot of variability and they're constantly being, shot off course. Your pitta boat is your speed boat and they are just like beelining it. They are like racing to the finish line. They're going to get there super fast. They're super driven. And then your kapha boat is like your cruise ship. And it's also getting like one way. It just goes exactly where it needs to go, but it's taking its steady, smooth time. And it's going to get there when it gets there. So with your digestion, it's kind of like that, where you eat your food, it's going to get broken down. It's a little bit slower at times, but that's okay. Your bowel movements are slow and easy. There's no like tendency toward a lot of diarrhea or constipation. Like it's kind of just this like steadiness all the time, which is awesome. And you have that in your mind too. So you have this like steady nature about you. But if you were to go out of balance, kapha energy, so usually wherever you go out of balance is really like what you're already made up of. You can go out of balance in other doshas for sure, but usually you kind of tend toward your dosha that's already dominant within you.
Right.
So for a kapha gut type, if you're going to go out of balance, then you're probably going to go toward, you can almost get like mucusy digestion, like you can get a little bit more nauseous in some people, or it can just feel sluggish, like things just aren't moving as
I
much as
am
they
nauseous
should. You gave
and
her a little bit of
sluggish.
that.
Maybe you just
Often.
needed to know what your doshas were,
Yeah.
Brianna.
Yeah.
You should have taken this gut quiz a long time. I keep telling her, I'm like,
Seriously.
maybe it's the food, maybe it's the gut.
Yeah, because I'm like, ooh, I feel queasy like all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's
We're
totally
gonna
your
learn so much.
tendency.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
We're here
things
to
are just moving
learn.
not as fast as they maybe should.
Yeah.
Right.
And so things that, really help to bring, like what's bringing you out of balance is too much heavy qualities, too much like heaviness or moisture. And sometimes you just need a fire under your butt a little bit, or maybe you need a little bit more lightness in your life, or maybe you need
right.
something that's like a little easier to digest. Like pizza and lasagna is probably not your best friend,
Yeah.
like
No.
heavy, cheesy stuff. Versus like for a Vata person, that can kind of be nice sometimes, so it's
Right.
it's different.
So interesting. Well, thank you for the rundown.
Yeah. Well, of course.
Like, for instance, for you, Devin,
Yeah.
can you tell us what yours is and then how that's affected the way that you would approach, like the way you eat, the way you sleep, the way you rest, the way you play? Like, how does you specifically, let's get into you, how does that affect?
And how, like, maybe finding this out, or your path to getting into this work for you as an individual.
So I am a Vata Pitta person, Vata Pitta. And I have kind of a funny story with mine, because I really resonated with Vata. I felt like I was a very Vata person. And then as I have been healing, and this happens a lot, as I've been healing, I have almost unearthed what my actual constitution is, because I was so out of balance in another way, that now that I'm like gaining more clarity, I realize what I actually am. So I had a lot of Vata imbalance, which is very common in our world. We are racing around all the time, and we are constantly just in an anxious state because of our massive to-do lists.
Right.
And so I thought I was very Vata. And then when I finally was able to settle that a little bit, I realized I was a lot more Pitta than I gave myself credit for. And I think I was also even somewhat in denial about how Pitta I was, because I didn't want to identify with the negative Pitta qualities, which is very angry and irritable and judgmental. And so I like had this wall up to being so Pitta. But in reality, like once I was able to heal my Vata and heal some of my Pitta, like Pitta energy is amazing, and it's so driven, and fire is powerful. And so it's been an interesting journey for my own self, for sure. I originally discovered Ayurveda actually through doing a yoga teacher training. And I did like one full day on Ayurveda, and it just completely changed everything for me. I've always been into cooking and being in the kitchen all the time. And when I learned that I could heal my body with food, that just like blew my mind. So I immediately after my yoga teacher training, I bailed on a master's program that I was going to do and went into Ayurvedic school instead.
Cool.
And so that's how I like landed in this whole area. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
How do you find that now, knowing that you are, sorry, you said Vata Pitta or Pitta Vata?
Now I'm more Pitta Vata. Yeah.
Pitta Vata.
Yeah.
How do you find that that's affected the way, now knowing that information about yourself, that you kind of ease into your days and your lifestyle, like how that affects the way you live?
Yeah. It affects everything for me. It's like through Ayurvedic school, it's really given me an entirely new lens through which to see the world. And like every single thing I do, I'm thinking about how it impacts my dosha and how it's really interacting with my inner landscape. And so I'm constantly thinking about it with everything. But I think the real like medicine with Vata or Pitta, honestly, is just kind of calming the outside chaos of the world, because the world is so crazy, especially Western world. Like, so I have to limit my exposure. Honestly, I have to be careful on social media. I have to be careful with the news. I have to be careful just like exposing myself to the chaos and finding that inner calm. And I think that's my biggest medicine for sure.
And are there any other practices that you bring into your daily life? I'm sure your diet has a big part in that you take into your daily life to kind of keep you on path to that balanced state.
Yeah, there's many things I do to like really center myself every day. But I would say like if I was to choose like one thing that I do almost every single day, that no matter how stressed I am or how overwhelmed I am, like I could be bawling, and this practice like always brings me back to center and makes me feel so good. And this is the practice of Abhyanga. Do you guys know what Abhyanga is?
No, but please tell us.
Tell us.
So Abhyanga is the Ayurvedic self-care ritual of massaging yourself with warm oil.
Ooh,
And
I love that.
it's the best. It's the juiciest, most
Yes.
amazing self-care practice ever. And it can be 5 minutes, it can be 20 minutes. I do it right before my shower every day. And I just coat my whole body in long, slow strokes in warm oil, head to toe.
Love that.
I love that.
And it's just amazing. It's so
Girl,
centering
that's-
and grounding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like one of my favorite things. I'm like, if there's anything I can do, it's literally rub oil on my lower half of my leg, because I'm like, I am rushing through this day. I need to enjoy. I need to like spend some time with me. I'm like, okay, really rub this into my knee real good.
You are a
Yeah.
big, she does. She
I do, yeah.
rubs
But it's
oil on her
so-
body every day.
It's so funny. It's the oil for me. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
you're speaking my
Yeah.
language. That's my ritual too.
Yeah.
The
You
oil,
must
I
be a
love
little
that.
vata then. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the self-touch, right? So it's like
Yeah,
bringing you back
totally.
to the self and the body, which we'll get into, which
Yeah.
I'm excited to get into further with your work as well, because it's all interconnected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, aside from Ayurveda practices, or I shouldn't say maybe aside from, but collectively with Ayurveda practices, it's very connected to the gut. And we know that you know a lot about the gut too. So we kind of want to go down that road a little bit and ask a few questions in that area. So based on your experience and the way that you explain that everything is so interconnected, what would you say is the biggest reason for gut issues? Or do you feel that the gut and I don't want to say problems that it has, but the edits that it might need in working with you and the programs that you offer, do you feel like it's very linked to trauma or emotion? Or what do you find is the biggest foundation of those issues in the gut?
I would say, like, I would go as far as to say that the gut literally is a mirror for what's happening in the mind. And the mind is a mirror of what's happening in the gut. Like, it's all so connected.
Right.
And some people say that Ayurveda says that everything starts in the gut. And this is kind of what we're taught in school. I would say that it starts in the mind and the gut, and it's kind of all at the same time. And so, you know, what helps the mind also helps the gut, and what helps the gut also helps the mind. And so you can kind of tackle anything from both angles, which is really cool.
Right.
But yeah, I would say like the gut, it truly is the root of so much, and you can heal the mind through healing the gut, which is incredible.
Right.
And,
Amazing.
you know, science is showing that these days, and Ayurveda has been teaching it for thousands of years. And yeah, it's really cool.
So fascinating. Yeah, I do feel, you know, we're kind of at this stage in society where the gut and the microbiome, and saying like the gut is the first brain or the second brain, or however people say it, I feel like it's such a common theme in today's, especially the health and wellness industry. So it's really interesting to get your perspective. And I love the way that you explain that, how you really kind of have to tackle the gut and the brain at the same time, yet working on healing one of them will start to help to work to heal the other one.
Exactly.
So, I love that, you know, working on them in tandem is probably the best solution. And
I would say almost like, to add on to your thought, if I think of somebody, for instance, like me, before I started getting into more of understanding about my body and this work in terms of like fulfilling in my feminine essence a little bit more and understanding this realm, to me, when I would think of gut, I would think of immediately digestion and not so much the connection it has to our spirituality and emotions.
right.
And
Yeah.
the physical kind of consequences or effects, I would say, that are side effects that happen with the gut. And for me, I would think of like, as a female growing up in the West, and in my earlier years too, my connection to the gut would be like, oh, I'm bloated, I'm not bloated. And that's like my knowledge, and it's extended as it would have gone in my earlier years. So speaking of bloating, as a practitioner and in your experience now, would you say bloating is good or bad? Because if we had no background or knowledge or connection to the body, typically bloating in society would be seen as
like a clear sign of something you're
something's
understanding
off,
is
like,
happening in your body. Right.
But is that always bad in Ayurveda? Or like what is bloating to you?
Yeah. I love this question. I always love the question of is it good or is it bad? Because it just is, in my opinion, like everything just is. And
Yeah.
bloating is a symptom. And we have to remember that symptoms are literally just the language of the body. And so it's your body communicating something with you. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's up to you, like it's obviously affecting you, and symptoms can be challenging and uncomfortable, and that's valid. But at the end of the day, it really is just your stomach communicating something to you. And it's an opportunity to say, okay, I have, gassiness happening in here. Why is
Right.
that? And then you get to look at your, if you're tracking, you get to look at, your food, mood, and elimination. That's what I'm doing with my clients. I have them track along the way, and we will notice a symptom, and then we'll go back and look at what maybe caused it. But to say it's bad or good, it is a sign that something's not quite balanced, I would say. And maybe you
Right.
took in something that's creating an effect, but good or bad, I think
Yeah, I feel like
oftentimes,
we love to, as human beings, have certainty in life, and we want to know what's going on when there's no reasoning for something, especially when it has to do with our health and the body. So how do you think, or how would you work with women to kind of help them shift the perspective from seeing something always as like a bad thing with the body as it being a
Yeah.
bad thing, rather than like what you said, it's actually your body communicating to you. So like if you're having someone coming to you that's so focused on the fear of what's happening versus tuning in, how do you get that woman to kind of cross that bridge for the first time and lean into those feelings?
yeah. One, it's valid, that fear is valid, and all the emotions that come up with these symptoms, they're all so valid. I always encourage my clients to remember that the body is as close to perfect as as perfect can be. Like our bodies are
True.
always healing. They're always trying to maintain balance and maintain that homeostasis. And they're always doing their best with what they're given. And so your body's already perfect. Your
They
body's
try so
amazing. Your
hard.
body can do so much, but it's what you're taking in that the body can almost get a little backlogged, and it can be almost too much for it. Like it can't catch up. And so, the art of Ayurveda is understanding what you're taking in that's putting a burden on your body, and what you can bring in instead to maybe alleviate your body's workload and really support it in healing and doing its thing. Because then once you learn what your body needs, then you just step back and let the body do the rest. And that's the magic.
So for someone who, let's say you have a client that comes to you and they're very interested in Ayurveda and gut healing, and they're very intuitive or spiritual, but they're having a hard time, really connecting with themselves or seeing the cues or hearing the cues that their body is giving them, what would be some like first steps to get someone started in just those very beginning stages of reconnecting to themselves, to even understand and note and make note of those cues that the body is signaling to them?
Rather than just running, being like, oh, I got to take a Tylenol because I have a headache. Or,
Right. Like
have
as
to go to
opposed to like
doctors.
coming to you and just being like, give me a diet or give me a pill or give me a solution to the problem.
But I don't have to feel this way.
Right. How would you guide them into reconnecting with their body so that they feel more, empowered with understanding what's going on with them?
Yeah, this is a great question, and so relevant these days because we are all so caught up in the chaos. And for someone that's just like so in the drama of life, and like they're just too, like I've had multiple clients where they like, I can tell they're thinking about a million things in a session with me, and so
Yeah.
bringing them into presence and centering them a little bit is an art for sure, and sometimes it's not very easy.
Right.
But honestly, tracking is a really profound tool. Like it's something that's so simple, and for someone that's very overwhelmed, I don't do it longer than a week, but even just a week of tracking literally allows them to like see what they're doing on paper and be like,
Right.
whoa, like I didn't even see that connection
Yeah.
is there. I didn't even realize I'm doing that.
Right.
And I get to like walk them through everything and tell them what I see. And then they just start like realizing all of these patterns that they've been doing forever. And so that's helpful. But then the other piece I would say is really just thinning out their schedule. Like it's for pretty much every single person in the United States of America. Like we need to slow down, and we have to like, because there's no way to listen to our intuition if we're constantly multitasking and we're constantly in our head and we're constantly on to the next thing. And we wake up thinking about our to-do list and we go to bed thinking about our to-do list. Like, that's not going to work. So finding moments of stillness is definitely like step one usually.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we all need to work on that a little bit. That's why it's so interesting. You know, they say that the happiest people in the world are sometimes the people that have the slowest, you know, most
simplest lives,
mundane or simplest lives.
The simplest things in life.
Yeah. But it makes perfect sense because we just get so overwhelmed and so caught up.
So on the topic of gut health and can kind of continuation of that conversation and digestion, I know because wellness is like a huge fad and trend and hot topic and buzzword these days for good reason too. Yeah. But I would say that intermittent fasting and water fasts or some sort of cleanse and detox is always on the rise or talked about. Do you think that these fasts and pauses and starvations are actually not so great for women and clients specifically that you work with when, or if that woman is already very disconnected from hunger cues? Or like, do you think that those types of fads and kind of cleanses for the gut or digestion like a water fast would be healthy or helpful, if that makes sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a great topic because it's such a big trend right now. And I will say this just straight up, fasting every single day, like intermittent fasting every single day is never good for women. There is a lot of research coming out right now about just ovulation fasting and, you know, or even just follicular fasting when you're like at your peak, you know, like you can fast a little bit easier.
Right.
I think that's valid. However, from an Ayurvedic perspective, it's just kind of funny to me. Like Ayurveda is really rooted in aligning ourselves with nature and aligning ourselves with our circadian rhythm. And our digestion follows the sun. And so as the sun rises, our digestion turns on. It peaks when the sun is at its highest around lunchtime, which is when we should be eating our biggest meal of the day. And then as the sun sets, it turns off. And so here we are in the United States and we're skipping breakfast. We have a small little lunch and then we have a massive dinner right before our digestion turns off. And it just doesn't work that way. So yes, I believe we do need a fasted state. I think the fasted state can be just when it's dark and that works and that's perfect. But we are not nocturnal animals. We are not meant to have a dinner once the sun goes down. We are meant to eat with the sun. So I would say if you are going to quote unquote intermittent fast and you want to do like 14 hours fasting or 16 hours fasting, have an earlier dinner and then you're good. And so you can do
it in the winter.
That like
Why?
What do you
Because
think?
we only get sun for like 10 hours of the day.
Oh yeah, make it less.
Do it in the winter. You have your long fasting during those long nights.
Yeah. Winter's a little bit more tricky, especially when it like sun's going down at like 4:35. Even so, like still having that meal as like a lighter, easier to digest meal, like a soup or a stew or something like that is still better, and having your biggest meal at lunch. But like this concept of skipping breakfast is just not good for the female body. And if you're ignoring your body's cues, like Ayurveda teaches us that, how do they say it? I can't remember right now, but like it's like preventing your body's natural urges is a cause of disease. So that means if you are not going pee when you need to go pee, that can cause disease. But that's also saying if you're hungry and you're not eating, that can cause dis-ease in the body. So by just ignoring our hunger cues and skipping just because we think we should, and it can help us lose weight or help us do whatever, it's not natural. And I think Ayurveda would say no.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I feel like as we're exploring through this season, we're really talking about how eerily comfortable it is to almost disassociate to prevent ourselves from feeling certain depths that aren't revered in society or welcomed. And then like even from a wellness standpoint, back to the intermittent fasting, like people want to do good for themselves. They want to be healthy. So if, you know, there's an expect science, you and your partner, and they just happen to be the opposite sex, are like, let's do this together. Let's support each other. I'm going to speak from my experience because my partner's like very into health. And he's like, let's do an intermittent fasting. I'm like, yes. But like deep down, I know I'm like, I probably shouldn't be doing this because I know I have hormones. And as certain research and like other women and practitioners such as yourself, like are educating and offering this information, I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But you want to do good, but it's generally like a very noisy space. And you're trying to do the best you can, especially women all the time with all the knowledge you can, that you're just sometimes fall into a disassociation of what actually is the simplest thing to do, which is just listen to what is required.
But I think that's why your suggestion of just even for 1 week doing that like regular logging, like checking in with your body, marking down what you're eating, how you're feeling, and all of that is probably so profound.
Yeah.
And I would venture to say that that's probably a lot more beneficial than sticking to any one diet plan that you pick, randomly out of a hat, or because
a lot more conscious.
Right. It's like, oh, this is what's trending, so let's give it a go, which I think a lot of people do. And like you said, all the power to them, because it's always with the best intention of wanting to do the best for yourself, but maybe it's not always the best for yourself, because turning in and tuning in
is something only you can get info from, not someone else. But sometimes we're like, what's going on? Tell me, help me.
Yeah. Yeah, because we live in a society of like instant results, instant answers, instant everything. Yeah. So I think that
and
patience is what's essential in all of this too.
Yeah. Patience and awareness. And like, this is why every new client, I have a 2-hour intake, like I ask them a million questions, and usually I'm still wanting to go over 2 hours by the end of it. And like,
right.
I really like want to know my patient as well as possible so that I can give them the best advice possible, because every single person is so unique and so by individual. And it doesn't matter what trend there is or what food is labeled as healthy for everybody. Like every single thing that's advertised as healthy for everyone, that's a red flag to me, because every single thing is good for someone, but every single thing is not good for like Ayurveda has a saying, everything is medicine for
I just said not all of those things are good for that one person, even though every single one of those things are good for
might be good for someone specifically.
Yeah. Ayurveda's saying is everything is medicine for someone and nothing is medicine for everyone. That's a huge saying that we learned in school.
Like
and like
great line.
It's so true. Yeah. Go ahead.
So on that note, is there anything, I mean, you said that the Ayurveda phrase is that everything is medicine for someone. Have you come across anything, whether it be trending or
common,
throughout the clients that you see, that you feel has been sold as like a health trend or a wellness fad, but in fact is having the opposite impact on the people that come to see you? And,
there's probably a lot of answers for that. But narrow it down for us if you could.
Yeah. Well, really, it's every single thing ever. Like I just said, like every single thing could be good for one person and it could be horrible for the next. So, to narrow it down to one thing, something that comes to mind always for me that's kind of funny is salad. Like it's so like salad is marketed as like the healthiest thing for every single person. And that's just like a healthy food. Eat salad. Like, and for a Vata person, that's a very light, airy person that's already very dry, eating a salad that's very light in nature and drying is only going to make all of their symptoms worse, versus for a Pitta person that is hot and oily, they need that. They need a salad to dry them out and lighten them up and cool them down. So it's stuff like that, it's very simple things that could be total medicine for one person and not the next.
I actually have another question. So surprise. If I know what dosha I am, how does that affect my cycles as a woman? Like, because I know during certain phases, it's more ideal to lean towards certain foods and comforts. So how does the doshas kind of integrate into that cycle specifically?
Yeah, I would say, women's health isn't really my field. So I'm not like this isn't what I do for, like, I don't do cycle syncing or anything like that.
Right.
But,
I know. I was just thinking, I'm like, ooh, you're right. Eating salad. I was like, oh, I probably shouldn't have a salad when I'm menstruating or this part, but because we're learning
totally.
this too.
But
I'm
I can totally speak to that part just in general, like throughout the, when we are, in the beginning of our cycle, when we're in our like follicular, we're energetic, we can our agni, our digestive fire is stronger, so it can just handle more, versus when we're in our luteal and in our menstrual phase, our digestion kind of calms down and we need more easy to digest foods and maybe more carbohydrates and maybe things like that. So it's kind of just looking at like how you're feeling, where your digestion's at, how strong your agni is, and just kind of leaning into the foods that support in those areas. Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, makes total sense.
You just have to be aware and listen and know about yourself.
But
right?
it's also
It's as easy as that.
as easy as knowing. Come on, just know.
Duh. But it's also just like, it's amazing how it's all so interconnected, like one thing to the next to the next. So in your line of work, when you talk about like nervous system repair and how you can optimize that with your clients, what does that look like? If you could explain that a little bit better.
Yeah. So it looks like many things, but really it's just leaning into all of the things that aren't depleting our nervous system, aren't like, let's see, how do I want to say this?
So do you help women identify the things that feel like, or your clients specifically, because I'm not going to limit it to just women here. So do you help your clients lean into identifying first what it is that depletes their system? Because I find often we can kind of just go on autopilot and just function because we need to function and not really consider what it is that's causing us to feel certain ways or, act certain ways. So do you find that maybe part of that protocol is identifying that first and then you can figure out how to adjust it? I mean, you tell me what you do because I'm just guessing.
Yeah. So let me back up and just talk about like what it means in Ayurveda to even have like a nervous system issue. So if you have a sensitive nervous system, say you are struggling with anxiety or you are just like unsettled all the time, or you feel like you're just constantly in that sympathetic state, sympathetic overdrive, and you're trying to get into that parasympathetic, but it's just so hard to like get it back into that rest and digest. That immediately to me is a vata imbalance, like period. So vata is when there's a nervous system issue, that's an excess of air quality happening. And remember, air represents mobility. And when there's a lot of motion in the nervous system, that's what we're talking about when people are just having a hard time with nervous system stuff. So versus like kapha, like if you were having a kapha nervous system thing, it would actually be kind of the opposite, where like you can't get rattled. Like we need to almost like shake you up to get you moving. So that's like an opposite, which isn't really like a super common thing these days, just in our society. But in a vata way, our nervous system is essentially dry. It's dried out and the air quality is just too potent. So we need to bring in that moisture. We need to bring in stability. We need to bring in all those opposite qualities that tend to the vata system. I'm going to feed you soups. I'm going to feed you oils. I'm going to like literally nourish your tissues with like unctuous, soft, moist things. And then I'm going to bring in more stillness, because stillness will automatically like slow down everything.
I love that.
Yeah.
Sounds so nourishing.
It's the best.
Yeah.
So we're going to ask you one question that we've been asking all of our guests this season.
Yeah.
And we're very curious to hear what your answer is. But why do you think it is that most of us wait until there's actually something wrong with ourselves to take action? That's the first part of my question. I'll let you answer that first.
Okay. Well, in the United States, or just in the Western world, like we're not taught to go to see a doctor until there's like an obvious problem. And there's like, so there's so many people that even have like so much ego that are like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm fine. And then they wait even longer until there's like a chronic disease happening. And there's just no preventative care that's taught to us from a young age. And so I think it's our system is messed up. I think that there's so much to this. Like there's other communities, whether in Europe or Asia or wherever, where we're taught preventative care and we're taught to tend to the body and we're taught to look for signs and see these early symptoms as a sign that we need to bring ourselves back into balance. And I think just the Western world, we're just so blind to these things and we're so like everything's so normalized these days.
Yeah.
Like you say bloating, and it's like everyone is bloated. Like bloating is normal. Like
Yeah.
I have a headache, like you just take ibuprofen, no big deal.
Yeah.
And our Western system, it just puts band-aids on things anyway. So we're taught, I was taught at a very young age to just take cough medicine and take ibuprofen and take whatever. And that actually just masks everything and it's just a band-aid. So I think that we're taught to just numb and we're taught to cover things up rather than actually look at them and look at the roots. And it's unfortunate, but I'm trying to change that. So
Beautiful.
a lot of people are. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very well articulated because it
Yeah.
actually kind of leads and answers the next part of the question was, do you think that these type of, let's call them inconveniences, like a headache or a menstrual cycle or a sickness of any kind,
Bloating.
that we're actually conditioned to resent these things because by going through them, they're actually initiations to connecting back to the self and body. But do you think that we're just conditioned as a society to just, like you said, band-aid them because maybe we're afraid of the power that we hold within our bodies? Specifically, I love women. That's why this is more of like a women's podcast because we're like portals of life. But do you think that we're conditioned to feel that way about these inconveniences specifically?
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it is even just in what you're saying, like the fact that it's an inconvenience, like that shows like what it really is in our society that like, oh, this is like an annoyance, like
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with this. I'm on a mission. I need to make money. I need to,
Yeah.
do whatever.
Be
I need to be a
productive.
mom. I need to, like, I have all these things that I need to do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think just our way of looking at it needs to shift. I think our mindset entirely needs to shift. And I think we
Yeah.
need to realize that everyone is experiencing symptoms but we're also like, we are all worthy of health and we are all like way better people when we're healthy and we're better mothers and we're
Yes.
better partners and we're better CEOs and whatever when we are healthy. So if we can pause to take care of ourselves, it's just like
Yeah.
giving ourselves permission because everyone else hasn't, like no one
Right.
else is giving you permission. You have to give it to yourself. And we're
Right.
just not taught that. So it's hard. It's tricky, but we
It's a
just have to keep
reconditioning,
spreading the word.
a relearning, a reprogramming. It's very difficult because
Yeah.
I mean, the older we get, the more difficult it becomes, I find. But then also it's about reprogramming, reshifting these paradigms, these thought patterns, and then instilling these into like the next generation because I think it's reconnecting us as a species, just as human beings.
Yeah.
To learn ancient knowledge from the people because this isn't just our world here. Like there's obviously something going on that's not working.
Yeah.
So we can lean
Yeah.
into one another, learn ancient practices, look into our history, into our past, other women specifically connect
Into ourselves.
into ourselves. And that's one of the hardest things to do is really to go into the self because we're taught to go everywhere but there. So
Yeah, in Ayurveda's definition of health, the word is svasta. And this word literally means to be established in the self. And I just love this definition ever. Like it's the best
so
definition and it's so juicy. And
Yeah.
like
What
to
is it
be
again?
established, to be established in the self, svasta.
pasta. Ooh.
Yeah.
I love
Sounds
that.
like a good
It's
tattoo.
yummy.
Total-
Yeah.
Oh god. Total embodiment.
But that's where it like really pulls in that like mind, body, spirit, like self, connection to self. And it's so important. Yeah.
That's so awesome. I love that.
I could talk forever.
I know, me too. Is there anything else that you feel you would love for people to hear about the message that you have to send or the information that you feel is so vital to helping people to reconnect to themselves, get more in tune, get more in touch, and live more of an intuitive lifestyle?
Yeah. There's one thing that I really was hoping to know or touch on during this. And like, I'm going to try not to get too wordy with this because I know we're kind of wrapping it up. But
Okay.
one of the things that I've like really been practicing and like incorporating into my practice with my clients is especially with women, is teaching them that this inner critic that they have is really always just trying to protect them. And there is like all of us have the ability to shift our relationship with this inner voice. And I do this practice with my clients. It's called naming and reframing. And essentially what you do is you name your inner critic, and you can name it something kind of funny. You can name it something that's kind of like a mean girl name. Mine is Tiffany. My friend's is Ashley. It's just like this girl that's like kind of, Tiffany's kind of a brat. She's a perfectionist. She's just super judgmental. And you name her. And so what this does is like gives you a little bit of distance from this inner critic. And it allows you to just like this distance allows you to not identify with this voice and not think that it's literally just you who's saying it. And so you can have a conversation with this new person, this new little friend that you have, and then you reframe it. And this reframing piece is really about realizing that this inner voice that you have is really just afraid, and it's trying to protect you from something. And oftentimes it's really just your inner child that's trying to speak to you and trying to protect you. And then you name your other self, your higher self. And this one is Nira for me. And she's this like big, powerful, amazing protector woman who's just like fearless. And she gets me through everything and knows I'm perfect already. And I give her a voice too. And so by having these two parts of yourself that you've named, I can now have a conversation with each of them and choose who I want to listen to and understand where each of them are coming from. Like I've dealt with a lot of body dysmorphia throughout my life. And so Tiffany has told me many times that I shouldn't go out in those shorts, or my thighs are not looking good enough today, whatever. But when I talk it to Tiffany and I'm like, hey, like, where's that actually coming from? And then I realized that it's this 6th grade self who remembers girls talking crap about other girls that had cellulite, and then they were judged and not loved because of that. And so it's really just this fearful little voice inside of me that is scared.
Right.
And then I get to listen to Nira. And so I like hear a Tiffany out, understand where she's coming from. And then I listen to Nira, and Nira is like, fucking wear them, wear them. And if someone's going to not be friends with you because of those shorts, you don't deserve them. They don't deserve you anyway, you know? So
we love Nira.
Anyways, all to say, this is like the coolest practice that I've been doing with my clients. And it is so powerful for women because every single woman I know has a very loud inner critic, and it prevents them from doing everything that brings them joy and everything that's going to like get them to heal. And so this piece, if you can truly like take a step back and talk to each of these parts of yourself and change your perspective and change your relationship to them, you're unstoppable.
Totally.
That is so powerful. Personifying the problem and the conversation outside of yourself is such a beautiful example and practice. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. I'm like, we got to talk about our critics tonight.
I can't wait to hear the names.
I know, we're going to share the names. We're going to name them.
I'm not going to lie. I kind of laughed when you were first explaining it because all I could picture is me going up to my inner critic and be like, what you gotta say?
What you gotta say? What?
Like I want to be tough with her.
I could picture
you. Don't do it. Don't you?
No, we're gonna tell you what we name our highest. And
you have to let me know. Yeah,
we will.
Yeah, and just literally
mine's
bringing
Veronica,
in this amount
for
of humor like helps so much too. Yeah,
I love that. That's so awesome. I can't wait.
So Devin, where do you think anyone here who's interested in your work or working with you and wanting to learn a little bit more about what it is you offer and the content you share, where can they find you and anything else you want to share with what you're offering at the moment?
Yeah, they can find me at easeayurveda.com. And my Instagram is at ease. It's at EA_S__E. But usually if you just type in Ease Ayurveda, it should pop up.
Amazing.
And we'll have all of this in our show notes too. So it'll be all typed out with links and everything to your platforms. But we just want to say thank you again so much. It was truly an honor having you on. I feel like I'm walking away more educated. I hope that everyone listening has that same feeling, or if they already were educated, they just feel reaffirmed. I actually can't wait to talk more with you in the future. And thank you so much for your time and like really imparting your wisdom upon us today and all of our listeners. It was amazing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is such an honor and I could talk to you forever. So yeah, let's do it again.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I wanna be as your lips, scared for your